Jeremy Fowler compiled a list of the top 10 quarterbacks for the 2022 season after speaking with NFL executives, coaches, and players. Notably, two of the most exciting players in the NFL were left off of this list in Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Lamar and Kyler are both in the top 10 in total touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. Louis Riddick is back with us. And Lou, I'm going to start with you here. Who do you think is the bigger snub? Is it Kyler or is it Lamar?
Yeah, I hate to use the word bigger, but I am going to say bigger. Look, I think Kyler Murray, again, you're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts, as the saying goes. And the facts say this. Kyler Murray, when you match him up against all of these guys in the top 10, is right there with all of them. And I'm talking about top 5. Look, he was right behind Joe Burrow in completion percentage above expected last year. Right behind Joe Burrow. And we know what completion percentage above expected measures. It really nuances the quarterback position as far as the difficulty of the throws, the amount of pressure you were under, how far the ball had to travel, what was the separation of the wide receiver, what were the circumstances in the game, who was the receiver that you were throwing to. All these different things are measured when really compiling this statistic, and he was second to Joe Burrow, who no one would argue that he belongs on this list and belongs on this list probably in the top 5. Kyler was one of the very best. He was top 10 in QBR. He was top 10 in efficiency under pressure when blitzed and efficiency under pressure when not blitzed. He's one of the best dual threat guys outside the pocket as a runner or a thrower. Now, what he hasn't done is he hasn't taken his team to postseason success, which I know that when it's convenient, we hang it on the heads of quarterbacks and say, well, he hasn't won a playoff game. But it's a team game otherwise, right? Except for when they don't win a game. Then it's the quarterback's fault. Even if he took them down, they had the lead, the defense gives up the lead, people still attach that L to the quarterback, which is something I just hate that we do. And I understand, look, Kyler is also a victim sometimes of his own body language, his own leadership style, his own introverted personality. He's a kind of to himself type of person. Arizona isn't necessarily one of the marquee franchises that we talk about incessantly on our own airwaves. But this is a good quarterback. And this is a good quarterback who right now, I'm telling you, if you really had to pick between the two, and look, Lamar is a unicorn. Lamar is kind of one of one. He really is. He is so unique. That's why I think, it's not even necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison when you're talking about him and maybe the other quarterbacks in this top 10 list, because he's so unique. But Kyler Murray can throw it, he can run it, he can beat you from the pocket, he can beat you outside the pocket. His team needs to have more success from a team perspective, and you'll be talking about Kyler Murray as a top 5 quarterback. Or he'll be in that conversation, especially when Tom leaves, Matthew Stafford leaves. Kyler's going to be right up in there. And his contract that he's about to get is going to show you that I believe Steve Keim and the Arizona Cardinals organization feels the same way.
The contract that Lamar Jackson is going to get, whether that's in line with Deshaun Watson money or more, is every reason that he should be considered in this top 10 list. And I know people are frustrated, like, why the slander for Lamar Jackson? Why does it keep happening? Well, while it's disappointing, you shouldn't be surprised because this exact same rhetoric around him has existed since he entered the league in 2018. So it's not going anywhere. And I'm not surprised that in front offices, the people that were polled for this article tend to believe that. Like I write our MVP file for ESPN.com, and I think back to a time last year, weeks 1 through 5, and especially that Colts game where he shattered every sort of narrative around him about the fact that, he can't come back and win games. He's just, this dual threat quarterback who likes to take off and run. Like, no, Lamar Jackson is that guy. And on top of that, too, the whole idea that, he's injury prone and all that stuff that, I know was talked about in this article. He got injured the second time against Cleveland because his ankle got rolled up when he was throwing a pass. So, let's, again, keep the facts. You can entitled to your own opinion, like Lewis said, but the facts are the facts here. And the facts are Lamar Jackson's wide receivers at the end of the season didn't do him any favors. In that second game against Cleveland, where was Marquise Brown? Where was Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins? Like, Lamar Jackson, people are probably going to remember him for that 4-interception game against Cleveland, and maybe we're all prisoners of the moment, but he was an MVP candidate halfway through the season last year. Injuries didn't do him any favors to himself or to his supporting cast, but I don't think that should be considered when we're ranking top 10 quarterbacks, especially when this guy is about to break the bank, and he already was an all-pro quarterback and an MVP quarterback in 2019. It doesn't make sense, But again, there are a lot of things in the NFL that don't make sense, and the rhetoric continues on and on. This has been the story with Lamar Jackson around him throughout his entire career. I'm not surprised it's continuing.
So you made the point. It's confirmation bias from a lot of these people who are kind of closed-minded in the way that they view modern football. And maybe they are thinking about traditionally like a traditional quarterback the way that they believe it should be. Lamar Jackson isn't that. That's fine. But the idea that he's not top 10 is slightly more absurd to me than the idea that Kyler Murray isn't top 10. I think Kyler Murray may get in there at some point, and I wouldn't be surprised, or I agree with you, frankly, that he probably could be in there. But I think it's just crazy to think, because it's not about who had a top 10 season last year. In which case, you can make an argument that Lamar Jackson's season was disappointing last year. Or not make an argument, it was disappointing. And you could give lots of reasons why, the injuries around that team and all those things that set it up to be disappointing. But this is not the question. The question is top 10 players at the position in the league right now. How could anyone argue that Lamar Jackson isn't it? He's been outstanding for his entire career. You already mentioned he won an MVP, and he's won a bunch of games. The things that you mentioned earlier, Lewis, that people use to argue against quarterbacks, they can't use it to argue against Lamar Jackson because they've been good. They've exceeded expectations every year. Even the year when he came in for Joe Flacco, he got them into the playoffs at a team that was not headed to the playoffs. And he saved a lot of jobs in that building.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.